Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here to continue our monumental project. And of course, that project I'm referring to is our WrestleMania review. We are going through every single WrestleMania, starting at one, leading up to WrestleMania 41. And the goal for all of this is for us to watch each one in order, and that leading up to WrestleMania 42. For today, we are going over WrestleMania 2. So this is obviously the second WrestleMania, which took place on a Monday. I know that seems weird, but it did. Monday, April 7th, 1986. And even more weird, this whole WrestleMania just has a ton of it in it. It took place in three different locations. It took place in Uniondale, New York, Rosemont, Illinois, and Los Angeles, California. A combined 40,000 people over the three venues, which is double of that of last year, was just under 20,000. And this was the very first WrestleMania that actually was available on pay-per-view. So clearly, WWE trying to make everything bigger and better. As of today's product, we can clearly understand, this has always been a thing. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's see how the three locations went. In theory, it sounds like it's something different. But let's go ahead and talk about everything that happened and see if it worked out. The first match of the night and the locations, they kind of did east to west over here. They started out in New York, went to Illinois, to California. Makes sense. That's a logical way to go about it. But the first match is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff going up against magnificent Don Muraco with Mr. Fuji. Yeah, and apparently I didn't know this, that Mr. Wonderful is fighting on behalf of Hulk Hogan, and Don Muraco is fighting on behalf of King Kong Bundy. And this kind of sets up the injury to Hulk that kind of plays a big part in the main event. So a little interesting fact there, because at first it just kind of seems random. But if had we been watching the build to this, which would have been a much bigger project, would have been information that we had known. So KP, what did you think of this opening match of WrestleMania 2?
This opening match was certainly something. It was there. It started off like it was going to be a decent contest. It was a little bit sort of like back and forth, and they're sort of like getting into their rhythm a little bit with how things were going. And yeah, by the time I probably got invested a little bit in it, it was kind of just over, I suppose. It was a weird way to kick things off. Normally with a big show, you want to start things off in like a really important manner. You want to get something like high pace, get the crowd pumped, get them ready to go. And this really didn't offer that value of entertainment. I personally thought anyway. The match sort of just ended because both men were at ringside and it seemingly was a double count out. I thought it was really quick for a double count out, so I'm not entirely sure what happened. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I had a look. I even played it back because I was like, wait, was that over already? I played it back again, and the same thing happened. I was like, wait, it's over. And I'm like, that's over, right? And it was. And yeah, I think afterwards, commentary team said it was a double count out. I wasn't particularly too fond of how this opening match went down. It wasn't really a WrestleMania opener, I guess you could say. It just wasn't it. Yeah, I don't know. Not a fan at all. I gave it a 2.5 out of 10 just because of genuinely just how the match felt. Like it was a bit slow, quite sluggish and stuff. By the time it really got going, it was over straight away. I thought, going back to the outside, oh, we're going to pick things up here, and then that was it. So yeah, I don't know. Really big disappointment to begin with here. What did you make of it, Nick? It was a pretty rough start, I thought.
Yeah, and we say this all the time, comparatively speaking to what we think from an opener, from a not just any pay per view, but a WrestleMania event. So you typically want that opening bout to be something that really gets the crowd pumped. This didn't do that. I think we kind of see this theme throughout the night. What we deem worthy of a WrestleMania match today and back then are clearly very different things. And this one had the makings for a good match. At least on paper and in my eyes, seeing the match start. But yeah, you kind of hit it perfectly with that double count out. It felt like I written down my notes. It felt like it was lack of attention. Like they almost forgot about that being a thing. And so they got counted out without even realizing it. And then before they got to the announcement where they do the ring announcer afterwards to say, the official result, if you will, they tried to go over to that, but then they moved over to a Mr. T interview. So we didn't even get the official results. So yeah, this was just messy all over the place. And this is very much laying the groundwork for the issues that we see occur quite often through WrestleMania 2. So I give this one a 1.5 out of 10. It couldn't really get started, and we see that a few times throughout the night. So let's go ahead and swiftly move on to the next match, which has Randy Macho Man Savage defending his Intercontinental title with Miss Elizabeth going up against George the Animal Steele. So this was the first title match of WrestleMania for that mentioned IC title, and this match was different. For me, I think it's entertaining. But KP, what did you make of this match? It's certainly not something we would see in today's WWE. I think that's fair to say.
I agree. That's fair to say. It was a strange matchup. You got the Macho Man Randy Savage, which is one of those guys that normally you would associate with some really good matches. Obviously, especially at WrestleMania, you're thinking, wow, this could be something. George the Animal Steele, maybe not so well known for the average fan. I think it's completely fair to say. No disrespect intended there. But this matchup was just a little bit odd, a little bit strange. The vibe around it was basically George Steele. He was smitten by Miss Elizabeth. Okay, fair enough. That's the character, that's the gimmick that we're going with, and that's the storyline. But it literally was like he was only focused on Elizabeth throughout the entirety of the matchup. Sure, he had moments where he would bring, the fight to Macho Man, but it seemed like he would do one move, then look over to Elizabeth and stare at her and just go over and try and get her to sort of give him some attention or something, or just say something to him or whatnot. It was a very weird dynamic. Macho Man was essentially fighting somebody who was distracted the entire match, and it had a really just weird flow to it. I think I've said that a few times already, but that was literally how this one went down. We saw George Steele literally eating the turnbuckle at one point, getting the stuffing out of that one, which was just wild. Obviously, that matches his character and gimmick, and I understand that, which was doing very well in that sense for sure. But yeah, it was an interesting contest. Ultimately at the end, we'd see Macho Man hit the elbow drop, and obviously I'm thinking, yo, that's it. That's gonna be the win here. I'd never seen this match before, by the way, so I was literally reacting to it live as I was watching it. And George Steele kicks out of the elbow, and I'm like, oh, okay, we got a match coming on here now then, all right. And then Savage wins by a dirty pin a minute later, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I was like, all right, well, there was the chance for it to become something really good. And then, we just sort of just completely ended it without even allowing that to happen. So, I don't know. It was a very interesting match. It was definitely better than the opener, 100%. I gave it a 4.5 out of 10. So it was an improvement. It's just, you wouldn't see this nowadays, that's for sure. And I know you already mentioned that, but that is literally how you can say this match went down. Poor Elizabeth, it was a lot for her to handle as well. What did you make of this one, Nick? Not your normal match, was it really, by any means necessary?
Yeah, that's perfectly fair and acceptable to say. Basically Macho's running away to start the match, and then George is either trying to eat the Macho Man, I guess. He's chews on him several times, or eat the turnbuckles. He apparently loves the taste of those, and then trying to get some time with Miss Elizabeth. And yeah, this one's wild. Flower bouquets and being thrown around, and Vince nonstop talking about George's torso hair. And 100% that's why he named him the Animal, because he has a bunch of hair on his chest, and his back. So yeah, this one's just wild. Yeah, and then the dirty pin to get the win. Definitely a very heavily relied on finish back then. And yeah, this was just kind of wild. I think you give this match 5 more minutes, and you could probably say that about a lot of these matches in these earlier WrestleManias. But I think if you're given this 5 more matches and they actually focus on the wrestling, you could have had a pretty decent contest. But for what we got, I gave this one a 3.5 out of 10. Yeah, just it's entertaining. I will say that, but just not much in the wrestling aspect of it. With that, let's go ahead and move on to another match, which has Jake the Snake Roberts going up against George Wells. Very much like the last match, Jake is constantly running away from George, albeit a bit more effective. At the time of this match, Jake the Snake is undefeated. At least that's what they tell us on the broadcast. What they don't tell you is that Jake had been with the company for about a month to this point. So, KP, what did you make of Jake the Snake Roberts, essentially his debut in WWE?
This match, I think, is probably the best of the bunch so far. That's not saying an awful lot. I completely understand that, but yeah, Jake the Snake is somebody that I've obviously seen quite often. You know, going back and watching old matches and stuff here and there. Just the gimmick was fascinating to me growing up for some reason. That, you know, man with a snake. What's not the love there? That's intriguing as it is. But yeah, this match against George Wells I've never seen before, so this was a brand new one for me personally. And I think that the match itself was kind of decent. It wasn't too bad. Like, I think both men, you know, were able to sort of like get the showcase out for what they can do, you know, throughout the early stages and obviously into the into the ending of the matchup. And I just thought they worked really well together. I think maybe give these guys another, like, you know, like you said a moment ago, give them another 5 minutes, and you know, this could have been like quite something. But for what they had, I suppose they did a decent enough job. It wasn't like a barnstorm or anything, but it was entertaining enough to, you know, to sort of like remember little bits here and there. Jake the Snake, I put an image on. I had to do it. I saw the photo and I was like, that has to go on there. Jake the Snake's sell was unbelievable. Keeping his feet on the top row whilst he's absolutely flat out in the ring. I was laughing when the match was happening because the sell was unbelievably good. Like we've seen like funny sells over the years, but how has this one not got the traction that I think it truly deserves? It was brilliant. It was a moment for sure, and it tickled me for definite. The post-match shenanigans, obviously Jake the Snake gets the win over George Wells, and then proceeds to grab his snake from the bag at the ringside and wraps it around the neck of George Wells. So yeah, it's obviously. If you like snakes, then you know this is or if you're intrigued by them like I was as a child, this is something quite interesting. If you're afraid of them, imagine if George Wells has a phobia of snakes. That is scary. He's literally like wrapping it around this neck, and you know, it's a live snake. It's a real thing. So it's quite a traumatic experience if you're not really up with that. But I thought the match was decent. Like, I thought it was okay. It was definitely the best one so far. I gave it a 5 out of 10. But I think just because of and you mentioned it, the times and stuff. If these matches had longer, they would be probably quite good. It's just you don't get that time. You can't say they really are. But for what they did, I thought it was good considering the time. And yeah, Jake looked pretty good as well. As did George. I thought George was quite good as well. Quite, you know, clinically sound in the ring as well. Like I say, just worked well together, I thought. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Jake the Snake Roberts being a fan of his growing up. My mother was actually a huge fan of him, and so of course, naturally, I come to like him as well. And you say mention the snake bit. Yeah, if you like the snakes, obviously it's intriguing. But if you're like me and you're kind of terrified of the whole thing, to see Snake being wrapped and coiled around George's neck, you know, that's terrifying. And seeing him foam at the mouth. Imagine watching that as a child, being just absolutely terrified. You know, speaking of the actual talent that has to be worked in, I believe it is. And I'm sure we'll figure this out going forward. But I believe it's Macho Man who's genuinely terrified of snakes. So his bouts with Jake the Snake Roberts would have been truly terrifying for him. And I think if I remember correctly, the snakes are defanged, but it still doesn't feel good. Later segments, you see the snake actually bite people. It still doesn't feel good by any means, but they are defanged a bit. But yeah, I think this was, in terms of a wrestling match, I think this was a pretty cool, a pretty decent match. Like you mentioned, more time could have helped. But yeah, it's definitely something different, something cool, unique. And so, you know, we are entertained, and at the end of the day, that's usually what we want. You know, just a good wrestling is a important part of it, and this one delivered kind of that. So I give this one a 4.5 out of 10. As you mentioned, this was the best match so far. But then, yeah, it's definitely different. So that seems to be a running theme so far. Speaking of different, let's get into the main event of the New York portion of WrestleMania 2. Such a strange way to go about it, but this is what they did. So we'll talk about. This main event features Mr. Going up against Roddy Piper. Of course, he has Cowboy Bob Orton, but not playing near as big of a part as he did last year in WrestleMania 1. This is a boxing match, and this is the first of three main events, as how each location gets a main event, which kind of made me laugh because me personally, I know I'm the bigger issue here. We've taken offense to main events having more than one when we moved to the 2-night Mania. But yeah, this was an interesting. I don't think we can call this a wrestling match. Clearly, it's not. But the interesting facts here that Roddy's fists were actually taped up within the gloves because of the idea that Mr. T had legitimate concerns dating back to WrestleMania 1 that Roddy would shoot on Mr. T because Mr. T didn't have he didn't have a wrestling background, and Roddy actually had an amateur boxing background that he had from his youth. So there were legitimate shoot concern issues, and yeah, so I think that plays a fun part into this, and I think you can really feel the animosity between these two guys in the match. But KP, clearly not a traditional wrestling match sense, but how were you entertained by this one, and what was your rating for this particular contest?
Yeah, this is a difficult one to speak about because obviously, wrestling fans talking about wrestling matches on a wrestling show. So when you get a boxing match, I'm not the best when it comes to talking about them because I'm not really too well versed on boxing matches. But from what we did see, obviously it involved Roddy Piper, one of the greatest heels, I think, just naturally in wrestling history. And then Mr. T, like you mentioned, the possibly real beef between the two men, and possibly shooting, Roddy Piper being able to do that. That's obviously a cause for concern for sure. So I completely understand what they've done here. But I think as a boxing match, I think as far as it goes, it was okay. I think you probably wouldn't see this in a actual boxing match, under boxing legislations and under that banner. Because both men were able just to absolutely just go hell for leather in parts. Like I think Roddy Piper started off pretty decently. Mr. T turned things around, and then at the end, it was basically just an absolute free for all. You see in wrestling where it's like the classic heel face punch, whatever, straight to the face, yada yada yada, boos, cheers, that kind of thing. Well, they had something similar in the late stages of this one, where they were literally just punching each other, no guarding, just straight up one. So I guess they brought elements into it for the crowd and the entertainment purposes, which kind of worked. To be fair, I think it was quite funny. But yeah, imagine taking those blows to the head consistently. Holy, that's gonna hurt. You're gonna feel that in the morning for sure. But in terms of the match itself, yeah, it was decent enough. Obviously, it's a boxing contest, so I can't say too much. But there were a lot of punches, there was a lot of footwork, and there was a lot of animosity between both men. And that's exactly what this match needed, following up from last year's WrestleMania main event. The brawl that would ensue afterwards, Rowdy would get DQ'd in the end. He'd actually power slam Mr. T in round 4 because, why not? He's a heel. He's not going to just stick traditionally to it. He is a wrestler at the end of the day. This is a wrestling show, so I guess, maybe talking about what you said a moment ago, maybe buying into that a little bit. And the brawl would ensue afterwards between both men and their respective crews. The ring fills up, and it's just a free for all at the very end. So yeah, lots of heat in this one for sure. I just stuck in you call me sitting on the fence, splinters, up where the sun don't shine, whatever. 5 out of 10 I gave this one, just solidly in the middle, because at the end of the day, I find it hard to rate this one, so I just whacked it in the middle. As a boxing match, it was probably quite entertaining, I guess you could say. You wouldn't see some of the stuff that they did in a regular boxing contest. I can't rate it as a wrestling matchup because it's not that, so sticking fair to it. But I'm just going to go in the middle. I think that's completely fair. Nothing else really to say. What did you make of this, Nick? It's difficult to really judge a boxing match on a wrestling show as a wrestling fan, but maybe you've got a bit more boxing knowledge than I have.
Yeah, I think in terms of a boxing match, I think we're probably the best audience for this. And my boxing experience is very limited. And when I say that, we're talking like single digits in my entire life. So very much not experienced, but I think this was entertaining for what it was. Like I said, not a boxing guy, but I will say this is more entertaining than the last boxing match I watched, which was Tyson and Paul. So whatever that's worth. Um, but yeah, like I said, you could really feel the animosity in this match, and that to me was entertaining. And I think Roddy is a tremendous heel, and his promos before and after this match were hilarious. He's truly an entertainer. And after the match, call it coincidence or whatnot, but the animosity being real, I think that was kind of mentioned. But Roddy takes an extended leave after this match. And then this was Mr. T's last pay-per-view match with the company. So call that coincidence, call that whatever you want. But yeah, I thought this was entertaining, and I think, like I said, the animosity felt real, and so that match more entertaining. And I gave this one a 5 out of 10. So exact same rating as you. It's something different, and like I said, I was entertained with it. So this was the end of the New York portion of the evening. So now we move to the Illinois portion. And the first match of the Illinois portion is Fabulous Moolah defending her women's championship against Velvet McIntyre. This was another weird one. To me, yeah, this one was strange. But KP, what were your thoughts on the match itself? Apparently there were some difficulties. I won't call them technical difficulties, but apparently there were some factors playing into this one. That being apparently the splash from Velvet off the top ropes, I guess broke her outfit or her bra strap or something of the sort. So apparently that did play a big part in the ending. So what were your thoughts on the actual match? I think in terms of how short it was, obviously that was a disappointment. But what were your thoughts on what we got here on this first contest of the Illinois portion of WrestleMania 2?
It seems to be a theme with these opening matches of each show, right? That they just aren't particularly very good. Obviously, we spoke about the opening of the first one earlier with Orndorff and Muraco, but yeah, with this one with Moolah and Velvet, this was not too great either. Unfortunately, yeah, lack of time between the ladies able to really showcase what they can do. That was a little bit of a disappointment. And yeah, I mean, they tried, to be fair. They had a bit of a fast paced start, I suppose, and they tried to really just, I guess, just get everything out as fast as they could, just to really showcase what they can do a little bit. But yeah, when you've got a short period of time, there's not really much you can do with that. And it wasn't the cleanest match either, to be honest with you. It was a little bit sloppy here and there. Yeah, I think if you had a women's match like this nowadays, oh my god, there would be riots straight up. So, obviously, times have changed, but based on this particular match as it was in itself, yeah, it wasn't your all-time classic. Let's put it that way. And the time, the quality, just everything about it, it just really just sort of it didn't leave a good taste in the mouth afterwards. That's for sure. Yeah, the finish. I mean, what you were saying, I wasn't aware of, but that potentiality. Maybe that was something that came into play, with the straps or whatnot. But yeah, I mean that could actually make a lot of sense and add things up there. To be fair, but I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. Just thought it was a really poor contest as well. Just generally speaking, there's not much to say about it that is good, except for it showcased the ladies' championship, I guess, and it got them on the card, I suppose. But that is literally the basic stuff you can say about it, and that's all I really can say. But do you have anything else to add? Anything a bit more positive? Because I really can't. I'm struggling for it.
So positive, I will say I thought Velvet, seemed like she was, like the splash was a cool spot until I guess it didn't land properly. Um, but I had to look it up because I was just like, that was so straight. And like the way Moolah covered her too was like, why did she cover her like that? I was like, something. I thought maybe it was a shoot. I genuinely thought, we've heard things about Moolah and Mae Young in particular. Um, But I thought maybe that was the issue here. And then I had heard that Velvet had beef with Moolah or whatever. So I genuinely thought that was a shoot match, and that wasn't the ending. But continuing that theme, give them 5 more minutes, and maybe they at least give them a chance. But the wardrobe malfunction makes complete sense, and that's why Moolah covered her like she did to prevent any further issues from happening. Was that the clearly? I don't think that was the planned match, but had that not happened, would the match have been any better? I guess we'll never know. But yeah, I gave this match a 1.5 out of 10. Just not much to go off of, unfortunately. And this was the only women's match as well. So, like you said, we've come a long, long way for the better. Kicking off at the next match, we have the Corporal Kershner going up against Nikolai Volkoff with Classy Freddie Blassie once again. And very fresh on our mind, the ending of this one coming with Nikolai getting thrown. Well, basically, how Nikolai and Iron Sheik won those tag titles at WrestleMania. This time Freddie's trying to do something similar, throwing in that cane. This time it's caught by the good guy and the US guy Kershner, and he instead uses it on Nikolai, and then the ref is counting that 3 count, so he does get the win. The good guys get the win this time around. But clearly a dynamic that heel face good guys versus bad guys dynamic that they clearly like. KP, what did you think of this match? And actually, this match was supposed to be a flag match, so let that factor into your overall rating.
Yeah, being a flag match, and correct me if I'm wrong, the flag was involved after the contest once they had a regular one-on-one matchup. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what came into play with it, to be honest with you, but it literally wasn't until afterwards where I was just like, wait, this was meant to be the flag match, wasn't it? And then Corporal Kirchner is literally just walking around with the US flag. And I'm like, all right, okay, well, great uses of the flags there, guys. But yeah, this match was certainly interesting. I'll give it that. You have Freddie Blassie, throwing in a cane when the referee was down for Volkoff to capitalize with, but actually Kirchner gets it instead and unleashes on Volkoff before going for a cover to win the matchup. Yeah, a little bit of a bit of a mix up there. Bad mistake from Blassie. Yeah, yeah, I think the match was okay. It was all right. It wasn't anything special. Again, seems to be a running theme for a lot of these matches on these early WrestleManias. But I gave it a 3 just because of it didn't do much for me. It was, yeah, I don't. It's so hard because I want to try and pick out positives. I really, really do, but I'm struggling because these matches really weren't very good. And this was another one that matched that sort of description. Yeah, big disappointment for me personally, and it just sort of like felt flat. Like I don't think I'll ever go back and watch this match. I'll struggle to remember it, to be honest with you. Yeah, what was the deal with the flag? I don't know. What even is a flag match? I actually am not sure if I really understand. I think they're meant to be showcased in parts, but like I said, it wasn't until afterwards that we actually saw one. So I don't know. It's all very strange. 2.5. No, sorry, 3. A 3 rating for me. Sorry, I'm just reading the one below above. A 3 rating for myself there. It's such a strange contest from start to finish.
Yeah, and kind of what I said in WrestleMania 1, I like the dynamic of the good guys and bad guys, although it's a bit, especially in today's world, it is very elementary in the wrestling sense. But this one kind of flipped on its head, and the good guys getting the better of this one. But yeah, the definition of a flag match is essentially capture the flag. Whoever gets the opponent's flag first. Well, I imagine actually what they would probably do with this is capture their own flag because you don't want the US guy going over and grabbing the Russia flag. That would be a good look. So I think probably what's meant to happen is those flags go on the back of the opponent, and so they are able to run over and grab it. But yeah, they completely disregarded that entire thing, and it just was a pinfall after he got hit with the cane. So. Yeah. Again, it just summarizes the whole event, not the whole event, a good portion of the event where chaos is just everywhere. The broadcasting, the airs with sound, and the just flowing back and forth between the events. This just is basically kind of adds to that. And yeah, I give this one a 2.5 out of 10. Like you said, very forgettable. I've almost already forgot it. Let's move on to the next event, which is a probably won't. We'll wait and see what your rating is on this one, KP. But to me, I thought this was a cool idea. WWE and NFL Battle Royal. So a lot of these guys some were retired, some were still active. Like I think one of them was the MVP of the league the year before, I believe. This was before I wasn't born yet, so I know, not an expert by any means. But that this was a cool idea, featuring, essentially all these athletes here. And like today, we have the next in line stuff where we have a ton of former athletes. I think this would be something really cool that they could probably do. Like this next WrestleMania would be, the 40th anniversary of this match. I think that's something they could really get away with doing in today's environment. So, anyways, I thought this was a cool contest, something unique. And fun fact, this was Bruno Sammartino's only pay-per-view match. Obviously, a lot of his stuff came before this time, and in the 80s in particular, 70s. But yeah, this is something different. KP, what did you think of this battle royal for what it was? I know you're not as big of a fan of the American football. What did you think of this contest?
Yeah, you set me up nicely there. American football isn't something that I'm particularly well versed with, so don't have the greatest knowledge regarding it, and I don't pretend to either. But yeah, when this match took place, and I noticed, they were alluding to all the stars that were in the matchup as well as the WWE superstars. Yeah, I thought it was quite an interesting dynamic. It's definitely quite unique for sure. I wouldn't say I disliked it for definite. I thought it added a little bit of an extra something. The crowd seems to really take to a few of these guys as well, getting behind them and stuff. So that was quite interesting and fascinating as well. But yeah, I think when it obviously all comes down to it, the WWE stars are probably going to get the the bigger of the moments, and it would be in the end Andre the Giant who would win this matchup. So Andre the Giant winning a battle royal at WrestleMania. Obviously, we see superstars nowadays paying homage to Andre the Giant by winning the Andre the Giant battle royal. Which takes place on WrestleMania weekend, not so much on Mania itself now. But it does take place on the Friday Night SmackDown the night before Night 1 starts. So yeah, we do sort of see the sort of pay forward in parts, in the modern day. And I think maybe that's sort of the way they're looking back to it. But what you said about possibly doing a 40-year anniversary of this type of thing, I mean, they could do. They've got plenty of NFL athletes around there and stuff that that are watching the events and whatnot. They're all there, on the Raws, the SmackDowns, PLEs, whatever, Saturday's main events. So they are in and around. Whether the the clubs would allow them to get involved, obviously that's another question because of injuries and whatnot. You could argue, but this matchup itself was, as far as the battle royal goes, there was nothing bad about it. There was nothing overly special about it. Obviously, the superstars as well as the football stars being involved, obviously that you can say is the special thing to it, a little bit different. But in terms of the actual dynamic of a battle royal, I think it was pretty much the standard. It was good enough, and it was it was a nice battle royal just to see a lot of talent involved and to see all the reactions and gauge how the fans take to certain people. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Did nothing wrong, did nothing incredibly well, but Andre getting another victory on the WrestleMania scene, obviously big moment for him, especially with that one.
Yeah, exactly. And we see the battle royals now, and you could argue those are less effective than this one. This one felt like it was, for what it was something different, and at the time we had obviously never seen something like that. So maybe seeing why it's named the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial Rumble, anyways. I think that's fair. A couple of more interesting bits here that apparently Brett was not scheduled to be in this match, and that was a last minute change. But him taking out the Hart Foundation, this was actually Andre's last face appearance at WrestleMania. So thought that was interesting as well. But yeah, I liked the match. I thought it was something different. And yeah, like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing something like that again. I think than the ones we get now. The winners typically don't do much after. So I thought this was a cool contest. I give this one a 6 out of 10. So swiftly moving on to the main event of the Illinois portion. And this was another tag match, which seemingly have the recipe to deliver success, at least for me. This has the British Bulldogs with Captain Lou Albano and Ozzy Osbourne going up against the Dream Team in Brutus Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine with Luscious Johnny Valiant for those World Tag Team Championships. And again, this would be the main event for the Illinois portion. KP, what did you think of this tag match? A new tag teams being crowned here, and last year, the tag match, if I recall, was the best match. I think both of us had put that as our top match. I can't recall if it was mine. I know it was yours, but it was definitely up there. Definitely one of the best matches I've won. Did this one live up to those expectations set by WrestleMania 1 for you?
I absolutely think it did. I thought this was, my first match of this WrestleMania where I thought to myself, oh, this is great. This is good. This is good stuff. It was a really, really fun tag team match between both teams. The Bulldogs, just showcasing what they can do. Greg Valentine and British Beefcake, the champions going into this one. They had a great showing as well. There was no sort of bad element to this contest, in my opinion. It was just a really solid tag team match that had a little bit of drama involved, had a little bit of a little bit of a good moment at the end when the Bulldogs got the victory. And there was just, it was just solid. Like, there was nothing really too bad to say about it. Basically just like saying how the match went down, it was very back and forth. And I say that, it really was. There were so many moments where the tide just turned. Both teams just, taking the ascendancy, and then ultimately the other team, stepping their gear up and, matching that intensity and then just controlling bits for themselves for a bit. And that was the case for essentially all of the contests, which was great. Just a really back and forth match, both teams going at it and just showing what they can really do. It was a really, really, really fun watch. It gets to a point where Dynamite Kid whips Greg Valentine into Davey Boy Smith, who was actually perched on the ropes in their corner. And the two butt heads, they collide. That allows for Davey Boy Smith to go over and get the cover on Greg, who just falls back into the ring. And Brutus Beefcake can't get into the ring quickly enough. The referee does count to 3, and we have the new tag team champions crowned. So quite a just out of nothing moment, really, here, I guess you could say. A little bit of quick thinking from the Bulldogs, perhaps maybe, just on the spot type thing there. But yeah, what a victory for the Bulldogs. It really was a fun tag team matchup. And yeah, like I said, this was the very first match on this WrestleMania where I thought, okay, right, this is really, really good. So yeah, we got things started here. Great main event for the second portion of this WrestleMania, I guess we can say. And these tag team matches, if there's anything that WrestleManias were about back in those early stages, they got the tag team matches. They did them really, really well, which is fair play. They're showing the love to tag team wrestling, which I think maybe isn't so much showed as much nowadays, unfortunately. But I gave this one a 7 out of 10 in the end. Definitely my highest of the second WrestleMania so far. Yeah, what a great match. What did you think of it, Nick? Did you have the same sort of thoughts as me, or where did you sort of compare it to that of the tag matches we saw on WrestleMania 1?
Yeah, like I said, I think this match did live up to the expectations set forth from WrestleMania 1. And with Davey Boy Smith shoving the hammer into Dynamite Kid, getting that win that way. I thought this match really delivered. I thought the competitors in the ring had some excellent chemistry, and it's a very technical bout. Like, it honestly felt like I had no idea who was going to win. And that's always a good thing. And in terms of wrestling, this was by far the best match that we've seen so far. I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10. And just like that, that was the end of our Illinois portion. And now we move on to the Los Angeles, California for the third location of WrestleMania 2. And we do so with kicking off with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat going up against Hercules Hernandez. Apparently, Bret Hart was claimed that he was the one that was supposed to face Ricky, and that opportunity excited him because he was really struggling to get his moment to shine in WWE because he lacked kind of the size of the other guys in the in WWE at the moment, and obviously charisma, which was never Brett's. So I would say a strong point by any means, but yeah, I thought this match was pretty decent. Ricky kicking off the California portion. KP, what did you think of this match with Ricky going up against Hercules Hernandez?
So yeah, with this matchup, then obviously our start of the third installment of the WrestleMania 2 locations. It's a lot to really focus on this one. There's so many matches and a lot of obviously things we've got to cover. But yeah, this one was by far the best of the intro matches for each WrestleMania venue, I guess we could say, for WrestleMania 2. Ricky Steamboat, Hercules Hernandez. I mean, if you got a match with Steamboat, you're probably off to a good start anyway, regardless. Yeah, it was a pretty fun contest between both men. I thought the dynamic between both individuals was pretty good. We had Ricky Steamboat, obviously, the quicker of the two guys. Smaller as well in terms of like height, but able to offer sort of like a different dynamic there. Hercules Hernandez, a bit more power game on display there from him. Built a little bit bigger than Steamboat, who is no small man when it comes to obviously his his stature in that regard. But yeah, when you got someone like Hercules Hernandez in there, you got the name Hercules, you got to be pretty big, pretty strong, and that's exactly what he is. But yeah, this matchup was quite fun. It was a good contest between both men. We saw loads from both in terms of what they can do in like just the dynamic, the face, the heel, just working really well together. And in the end, Ricky Steamboat hitting his crossbody to get the victory. After just beforehand, he had got the knees up for Hernandez, who had gone to the top rope for a dive moments beforehand. So yeah, just sort of a nice, simple victory there, but something that worked really, really well. Just turning that around, that top rope maneuver, able to get himself up there, Ricky Steamboat, to go up and hit his signature crossbody. Yeah, I liked how they did the finish. It was nice and simple, but it worked. It was effective. 6.5 I gave this one, which is for an opener for a WrestleMania 2 location match, I guess you could say. It was very good compared to the other two for sure, and that's what you get with Steamboat matches. He's always very consistent. So yeah, great matchup between both men. 6.5 I think is pretty good, and yeah, one of my preferred matches of the weekend, to be fair.
Yeah, comparatively speaking, definitely the best kickoff match for the three location. That's absolutely fair to say. Yeah, Ricky gets a little more time to shine than he did last year. Hernandez looked pretty good as well. So I think this one's just kind of a fun technical match. Got like 7 minutes. So comparatively speaking, is longer than most of the matches of the evening. So, and yes, a little bit of deja vu, at least that I had, was because that is pretty much the exact same finish with the crossbody from Ricky to beat. It was the same finish that he used on Matt Bourne last year, and yeah, just a fun match, and that's about all I have to say. Nothing negative really. I gave this one a 6 out of 10, and like we said, definitely the best kickoff match of the three places. Let's get into the next match, which is definitely the worst portion of the California. And if you were to eliminate this match, I think your main event, your last two matches of the Illinois portion, um, or excuse me, just the main event. Going forward, everything else was which definitely a step above from what we had seen before that. But this one has the adorable Adrian Adonis going with Jimmy Hard, Mouth of the South, going up against Uncle Elmer. Apparently, Adonis was given this gimmick as punishment for gaining weight. So, KP, what did you think of this match?
This was truly something. This was an interesting matchup for sure. I had absolutely no idea what to expect from this, and when everything kicked off, I asked myself about 50 questions in about 3 seconds, I'd probably say. Just, I'd never heard of Uncle Elmer. I thought they said Uncle Albert at first, and I had it written down as that, and then I realized it's not, and I changed it quickly when I was looking through, notes and stuff afterwards. And yeah, I don't even know where to start with this one. This is just it's a fever dream, it feels like. You said that obviously Adonis was given this gimmick because he put on a bit of weight. That is damn right horrific behavior, because how is he meant to sell this gimmick, right? Like, he won the match, okay, fair enough. He'd hit a splash from the top rope to get the victory, but oh, this was rough. This was a weird one. Yeah, Jimmy South on the Jimmy Hart on the on the outside there. How he was able to sort of, like, you know, just ultimately just be okay with everything. He represents like half the freaking company at this point, to be fair, because he's a manager in, like, I swear, like half of these matches somehow. And that's like no real exaggeration. He seemingly is everywhere. But it's just a weird situation here. Like, this match was so straight. It wasn't good. It was a very slow, sluggish, eye-opening, can't take your eyes off of it, really want to keep looking, but also want to look away at the same time type match. I really don't know what else to say about it. It was just so odd, to be honest. I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. I really, really struggled to find positives about it because it was just completely bizarre. Like, I think that's basically all I can really say. I don't know what you make of this one. I'm really fascinated to hear, but wow, this was certainly something.
The fact that the gimmick was given as a punishment for gaining weight, I think that in itself kind of tells us all we need to. This match was never meant to be taken seriously. That's apparent. But the beginning of this match reminded me of the Hulk HBK match, where HBK didn't want to lose and he oversold the entire time. That's kind of the vibe I got from this match. And yeah, like you mentioned, Mouth of the South, very busy, always around. Um, yeah, this match was just different. In terms of something positive, um, this was a talking point, I guess. It was something that I don't think we'll be able to forget this much as we might want to. But yeah, this is different, and I realize, you know, not every match is be a 5-star classic. You have to mix up, you have to mix things up and kind of change the pace. But yeah, this is just a match I think we would be best to just move on from. So let's go ahead and get into the next match, which has Terry and Haas Funk, the Funk brothers, again with Jimmy Hart, going up against two of my favorites from WrestleMania 1, and that of Tito Santana and JYD Junkyard Dog. KP, what do you think of this match as well? Is this another tag match that seemingly is the recipe for success to WrestleMania?
Yes, I absolutely think it was. This was my match of WrestleMania 2. I think that it was just absolutely brilliant. Both teams just going completely at it here, showcasing everything they can do. The dynamics that were involved, the storytelling, just the characters on display. Everything about this one was gold for me personally. I absolutely loved it. Santana impressed me on WrestleMania 1 in his singles match, and obviously now being in a tag team contest, showing what else he can do in this respect. I thought he was involved decently well as well. And then Junkyard coming on in towards the end and, you know, having a really big pop from the crowd, like lovely comeback sequence, you know, hot tag, just trying to go for it, trying to turn the tide. Did a good job of that. And then ultimately it is the villains in the end who get the victory. Jimmy Hart, he's everywhere, but he's there again. And he throws his megaphone into the ring to Terry Funk. Great catch by him, by the way. Hits Junkyard Dog over the head with it, and then goes for the cover to get the victory. This was just a clinical tag team match. It was a spectacle. Honestly, it was really fun to watch. Both teams just went out there and just put on a really good show, and no one shied away. Everybody was involved throughout the entirety in bits and parts here and there. And yeah, they all basically just played along a really nice tag team story for this particular matchup. And yeah, it was a valiant effort from Santana and Junkyard Dog, but in the end, it is the heels, it is the villains who get the victory. The Funk brothers with the victory in this one, and yeah, really enjoyed it. Great tag team matchup. The tag team matches, like I said earlier, they are really well done in these early WrestleManias. This was absolutely no like different from that description. It nailed it on the head, and yeah, just a really fun matchup. My match of WrestleMania 2.
Yeah, it definitely was a great contest, and like I said, two of who I liked the best from WrestleMania 1 being a tag team. I thought that was a great recipe for success, and obviously going up against the Funk brothers, who, you know, especially Terry, their reputation has to precede them. And yeah, this is very technical, very fun, back and forth. Yeah, and then the microphone finish. What's not to love? This is tag team wrestling at its finest, and again, seems to be the recipe for success. To have a good match at WrestleMania. I don't recall off the top of my head. I don't think we've seen a bad WrestleMania tag match yet. So probably jinxed it. Now we'll probably get a bunch of WrestleMania. We'll have to wait and see if that one comes back to bite us. But yeah, this was fun. I didn't rate this one quite as highly as the tag match earlier, which of course was the British Bulldogs and the Dream Team. But yeah, this one was just a notch below, and I gave this one a 7 out of 10. Still a very, very good contest, and yeah, one of the better matches for me at WrestleMania 2. Getting into the main event, of course, features Hulk Hogan defending his WWE Championship up against King Kong Bundy with Bobby the Brain Heenan. Speaking of Bobby the Brain Heenan, he apparently the day before was checked into the Tampa hospital and was told that he had 2 fractured vertebrae and immediately needed surgery, but was called by WWE, presumably Vince, and told if he didn't show up to LA for the main event, he would be fired. So he checked himself out of the Tampa hospital, hurried back to LA, bumped for Hogan, and then rushed back to Tampa the next morning to get that surgery scheduled. KP, the first ever cage match for WrestleMania, of course, the iconic blue cage. What do you think of this match and your rating overall for the match?
Well, firstly, that little tidbit about Bobby the Brain Heenan, that is wild. That's crazy. I had no idea that was the case at all. So just yikes. Imagine that happening nowadays. You'd have lawsuits all over the place. But regardless of the fact, the match itself, yeah, I mean, King Kong Bundy, we spoke about his match at WrestleMania 1, and that was obviously, nothing. It was a nothing match, right? 9 seconds or 24 seconds, whatever you want to say. It was god awful either way. It was nothing to really focus on. This one you can piece a bit more together with. You can describe a bit more. You can criticize a bit more often, and it was a much better match for him at WrestleMania. Hulk Hogan, he gets a main event spot again, and you can obviously see why. He's very over with the crowd, and obviously things just work when Hogan's in the ring. And yeah, both men had a pretty good showing with each other. I think this one, just two big guys, just dishing out everything they need to do within the confines of a steel cage. And yeah, seeing the difference between the cage back then and obviously the more modern ones is very different. It literally gives like a cage environment, that you typically see, maybe in sort of like zoos and stuff and whatnot, with the very big sort of like open squares and stuff. But yeah, it was quite an eye opener, when you do compare it to what we've seen now. King Kong Bundy's strategy for this one, basically just to get to the door any sort of like time he could, clearly not wanting to take to the heights and escape the cage. I think all I could think about was I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure Jesse Ventura was on commentary for this matchup, and all I could think about was Drew McIntyre and Priest from Saturday's main event, and Jesse Ventura absolutely losing it, the fact that someone won by escaping the cage by walking through the door. That's all I could really think about. It's like, imagine this guy in almost 40 years time watching steel cage matches and seeing that kind of stuff happening. It'd be crazy. But yeah, regardless, quite funny. But Hogan wins by going over the top of the steel cage and then landing both feet on the floor, whilst King Bundy tries his hardest to get out of the door, but ultimately is just a little bit too late, and does not get out in the end. But Hogan retains his championship. That's arguably the easily the correct call here from this matchup, and was a decent steel cage contest. I can't really complain too much about it. It was fine, it was good, and it was very vicious from both men, especially King Kong Bundy with the opening stages, especially with the bandage that was around Hogan's midsection. There was a lot of animosity in this one, and King Kong Bundy came out fighting, but didn't quite get the victory that he would have desperately wanted. But good win for Hogan. And not a bad main event at all. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I thought it was a pretty solid steel cage contest.
You know what's funny is when referred to WrestleMania 2, obviously you have the chaos of the 3 different places, but I also hear a lot of people just not a fan of this match. And I honestly, I don't quite understand the animosity towards this match. I thought this was a pretty decent match, kind of as you kind of mentioned as well. I thought they really made King Kong out to be this big monster, and someone that only the likes of someone like the Hulk could take down. Um, you kind of hit on it a little bit too, but like Hulk just has that, I want to say, like aura to him. Like the crowd adores him. But yeah. So to see someone like Bundy, ripping off that tape from Hulk's rib, tying him to the ropes, and then the blading spot. I think it was the first blading spot we see at WrestleMania. That was kind of brutal. And then Elvira, who was on commentary with Jesse Ventura, and Elvira says she was getting hungry at the sight of the blood. So she also called this the match of the decade. So I don't know if I'd quite go that far, but I thought this felt like a main event. I thought this made Hulk obviously look good to power through those injuries, but then I thought this also made Bundy look like a legitimate threat to that WWE Championship. So yeah, this was a decent main event, and I felt like this main event was better than the first one, at least in my eyes. But yeah, this was a good ending to a very strange WrestleMania. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, that is WrestleMania 2. KP, you want to give us your overalls for the event, and of course that includes your overall rating. What are your final talking points for WrestleMania 2 now in the books?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the early WrestleManias, it's difficult to be able to give these really high ratings, because obviously when you look at all the matches on the card, there are a lot of sort of, I don't want to say throwaways, but ones that just really aren't quite as living up to the standard that we see from some of the other ones. There are some very good matches, and then there are some that are some real disappointments. I gave WrestleMania 2 a total of 5 out of 10, just an average rating from all of my results together. Work out that way, and I think that's really fair, because it does sort of encapsulate what I just mentioned. Then you've got the good half, which is doing very well, and then you've got the other half, which is maybe a little bit disappointing and just sort of is just pushed to the side, maybe deliberately forgotten about. So yeah, I think 5 is probably the right sort of level for me to give this one, really, based on my my reasoning there. But yeah, I mean, there were some good, there were some bad, and I think naturally speaking, there are a couple of matches on here that I think, deserve to be on a better card, but alas, they are not. But it is what it is. Yeah, not a bad WrestleMania. I think, the early stages, it's going to take a little bit of time to get up to, to this, that, and the other. But I'm sure we're working towards that slowly and steadily. But yeah, not bad. Not bad.
So yeah, I think it's safe to say this event was chaotic. You see that with the broadcast technical difficulties and all of that. I think by definition you're spreading your team amongst 3 different locations. You are then you have to pick up these like Elvira and actresses that aren't typically here. I think by definition your product is going to struggle a bit from that. I think it was a cool idea for the time, but I'm sure that due to being tossed from broadcast to broadcast, it was kind of confusing. For us watching it now, knowing that's happening. So I can't imagine how that was perceived at the time. And yeah, some of the guest commentators didn't. They weren't it. I'm sure they were a big name at the time, but in terms of wrestling and looking back on it, didn't quite do what it should have. So for me, about half of the matches were rated under a 5. So, while there were some entertaining ones, I think a lot of them fell well short of what we would expect from a now WrestleMania. So overall, I gave this one a 4.5 out of 10. So just a smidge below yours. And this that does come in a smidge below the first WrestleMania, which was a 5.2. So a little bit under that. But I will say this, while the rating of the matches are lesser than that of one, I feel like this Mania was more of a talking point simply because of the chaos that ensued. So I feel like for me, planned or unplanned, this one had a lot more talking points. So I think I enjoyed WrestleMania 2 just a bit more than WrestleMania 1. But yeah, safe to say, and we know that now, this was the first and last time that they did the 3 locations. And I think that was a good call. But with that, this has been our review of WrestleMania 2. And, first of many, many. We obviously still have 39 more to go, but we are really enjoying this, and we hope you are as well. And with that, this has been another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. If you like our reviews and what we're putting out here for this WrestleMania project, please let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as well. And until next time, which will be WrestleMania 3, we'll see you soon. Take care.